Celebrity Book Club.
Hey, man, can I get one donut for me and my really thin gay friend?
Sure, little lady. That'll be 3 cents.
Fuck, I only have 2 cents. Guess I can't get my coffee today.
Listen, I'll give you the coffee, black, like you like it. But I can't give you the donut. What I can do is this other, older donut that's a little stale. It's from the floor.
Perfect. Let me get my sketch pad. I love sketching old, stale food while drinking black coffee and smoking cigarettes.
Listen, you know I support you and your kind, but you can't sleep here on the counter like you did last night.
Fine, man. I'm gonna go to Coney Island, where they accept freaks like me. Okay.
Good riddance.
Okay. All right.
Who's that knocking at the door? It's all your friends, you filthy whore. Your husband's gone and we've got books and a bottle of wine to kill. It's Hollywood. It's books. It's gossip. I'm shook. It's memoirs. It's martinis. It's Studio 54. It's Celebrity Book Club. Come read it while it's hot. Celebrity Book Club. Tell your secrets, we won't talk. Celebrity Book Club. No boys are allowed. Celebrity Book Club. Say it loud and proud. Celebrity Book Club.
Buzz me in, I brought the Cuervo.
Hey, best friend!
What's up, you punk rocker?
Hello, you really artsy, bleach, blonde, downtown adjacent,
Thin.
hanging out, thin.
You forgot thin.
Thin. Oh, sorry. No. My super thin friend who is a out and proud homosexual.
Well, I'm sort of exploring my sexuality. Thank you for acknowledging that and surfacing all of those ideas. I'm so excited to be with you here today in the studio in New York City. Hub of art, music, culture,
photography,
painting, writing, poetry, drug use.
Coffee.
Yeah.
It's a big coffee center.
The first coffee
was ever drank
was
here.
back in New Amsterdam.
The Dutch, they brought it over.
Today's a big deal.
Today's huge. I don't even know if our listeners deserve this.
No, they really don't.
You guys do deserve it. Today is an insane day. We have the most famous guest
we've ever had.
We
have the ultimate I think we said when we did the Bible.
Yeah.
You said God's the ultimate celebrity. And I was like, okay, that's basically true. But then I was like, but wait a minute. There's maybe, there's a handful of people that are bigger celebrities.
Yes.
Because God was the first.
He was the original celebrity.
He was the original celebrity, but there are bigger celebrities,
huge
right?
Celebrities,
there are huge celebrities. You might even say, who is our God, right?
Right.
Who is the creator that endowed us
to speak like this.
Right.
And some know her just by that first name. I'll say it. Roz.
I mean, the original producer, the original
original
Booth babe, the producer of Frasier.
Yeah, but no, we are not talking about the Booth babe, Roz or Frasier. We are talking about Dr. Rosalind Kearney, my mother, is here in the studio with us today.
Welcome
Roz!
Thank you so much. And I would like to add to the God conversation that I am a goddess.
Goddess. Right. God
is a woman, and she is an analyst.
Yes.
A licensed clinical social worker.
Right.
No, a licensed psychologist.
Okay, wait, and that's better or not? Well,
it is better.
Okay.
You think it's better.
I have both.
Ooh.
You're a licensed social worker and
a licensed psychologist.
But you're not an I always forget. Are you an analyst?
No, I'm not an analyst.
And not an analyst.
Okay, is that the thing? And this, not to whatever degree shame, but it's is it the thing where it's the more letters there are in the degree, the kind of less valuable it is? It's
well, no, that's when you have too many pens in your pocket.
Oh, I see. Because everybody's always like MDA, PhD, LCSW, and you're kind of like, what are we trying to prove here?
Right.
Got the whole alphabet at the end of your name.
It's time to graduate.
Yeah, at some point you have to leave school. And, as we, lived in Boston, I think a lot of people, you probably had a lot of patience.
A city of schools.
City of schools. You could even be a dissertation therapist because people could not stop researching.
I know a few people who might need that, who are like, they're addicted to doing dissertations.
Yes, or the research for it.
Right, you're never done. You
You're
never
never
get,
done.
You never
You're
get
just-
to the conclusion.
No, you never start writing. You're so busy researching.
Right, because then what do if you can't research?
Now, Roz, you come to us today as a therapist, as a mother, as a resident of Cambridge, Utica, and New York.
Originally, Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah, originally hailing from Brooklyn, New York, right by the Prospect Park, but then you fled upstate when you were about 5?
6.
This was during the war?
No, it was the reason that Brooklyn went downhill. People really try to talk about how the Dodgers left, but they forget to mention that really what happened was that I left.
They said New York is over, it's not what it used to be. But now we should announce the book that we're doing today is one of your favorites, and you're wearing the T-shirt of the author. Describe what you're wearing.
I am wearing the T-shirt of the iconic Patti Smith, whom I have admired since birth. At the bottom of my T-shirt, she says, "I think choosing any gender is a drag."
Now, when did she say that?
I don't know. She just said it on my T-shirt.
On the T.
So, of course, we read Patti Smith's book, Just Kids.
The famous,
And by the way, I think we should mention how the title came about. Is that she and Mapplethorpe were walking through Washington Square Park. And this older couple were staring at them, and the woman said to her husband, "Take a photo. I think that they're artists." And the husband said, "Oh, well, not really." He said, "They're just kids."
She does struggle at first a little bit when her very good friend Mapplethorpe starts to explore his sexuality. She's a little uncomfortable.
I was surprised by that. I guess I truly thought this whole book was about just them being best friends. I didn't realize that they were lovers.
I don't know that she struggled to figure out how important it was, because in certain ways, in her words, she was kind of clueless.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, a lot of fag hags, if I may use the term.
I think she wanted to be with him so bad.
Yeah.
So it was more like the heartbreak of, and she was like, "Oh no, I was like cool with gay people, but like didn't want him to be gay because like she was so in love with him." Do you think?
No, I don't think so. I really think she wanted him to be whatever he wanted to be. I think what she struggled with was trying to understand it because she felt so basically out to lunch.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't think it was that she wanted him to want her sexually?
Not any more than he did. I think she wanted a friend. I read the same book you did.
What?
No, I know. No, and this is why we're here discussing. We all, I guess, come away with different thoughts because the way she talks about them, it doesn't seem like, I guess, to talk about their sexual relationship.
Well, she doesn't describe their sex at all. There's no real like.
It's much more like, we were drawing on the floor of our apartment.
We were cuddly, we were crying. He was always doing drugs while she was awake. Then she was sobbing while he was awake, and it was kind of like. Sobbing was her LSD.
Well, I mean, and the other thing that shocked me when I reread this book, because I read it many years ago, was that I didn't remember that she had a child that she gave up before she met him. So that was a horrible, horrible experience for her.
It sounded so. I mean, she's in Massachusetts.
No, she's in South Jersey.
Oh, okay. South Jersey.
She was at home. She was living at home.
And they sent her to like a wayward house for bad girls.
Because it was, she was in the neighborhood, and the neighbors started noticing, and they were like, well, the neighbors were like starting to talk shit about her.
And bringing shame to her family, who had been quite accepting.
Yeah.
She had also found someone who was willing to adopt the baby, an artist couple in the area in New Jersey. So, that was going to happen. But then, she had to go away from her home once she started to really show. And then her parents actually took her to the hospital to deliver the baby. The nurses were horrible to her.
That part was so sad.
Horrible to her, calling her names, leaving her. She was in pain, leaving her on the table. Doctor was furious when he came in, at the nurses, not at her.
Right. Because it was like some term. Like
she had to have a cesarean section.
Yeah.
And all the nurses knew she was like out of wedlock.
Or they weren't even paying attention. Yeah, they were just so pissed that she was a whore. And they were just like, oh, you dumb slut. Like, we're not even going to really look into what your medical condition is.
Right, exactly. So how that relates to her beginning sexual relationship with Mapplethorpe is that she was embarrassed and worried about the scars that she had from the cesarean section.
Yeah.
Right. The body keeps the score. I mean, this was the 60s when she was the pregnancy. She was 19.
Yeah. But as she says in the book, pregnancy was synonymous with marriage. There wasn't, there was no abortion. There wasn't birth control. There wasn't that she had available to her. I can't imagine.
And then it's like, and then you just move on and you don't talk about it. But it's like that was just happening all over the place.
All over the place.
Everywhere.
Left and right.
So that her sadness and her crying and so forth when she was with Mapplethorpe, I mean, they went back and forth, it sounds like, in terms of one was up, one was down, and so that they were kind of there for each other. But a lot of the sadness had to do with having to give up this baby.
And then I feel like also her relationship with Mapplethorpe was much more of a companionship and them being more like kindred spirits rather than like, I think, they did sleep together at some points, but that wasn't like the main part.
Right.
I think she just wanted him to want her as like her number one
soulmate.
Yeah, and more of the sadness that I feel like they had this best friendship, and then he of course has so many issues and is so repressed where he he does date that guy, and then he's like, oh, and then they date for a while, and then he breaks up, and he's like, oh no, that was a fluke. Let's get back together.
So she has this baby in Jersey, and she moves to New York. And to make it and do something. She wants to be an artist. She's read all these art books. She's been pouring over
books constantly.
Diego Rivera, Frida Kahlo, Picasso. She loves the Picasso where is she at the Philadelphia Art Museum?
Yes.
There's like a Picasso room and she's taken with, and her father is like, oh, this is poppycock, this is claptrap. This isn't real art.
She said, "This is real art."
And she has that, that first rebellion against the parent, where you're like, I like the thing that they don't like, therefore it's cool.
And she's like, I gotta go to New York City, and I feel like she's like,
now let me ask something. Did you guys ever have this? Did she ever come home and Lily was just like, I love this awesome new band, the Misfits, the Dropkick Murphys, and you were like, what? You turn that cassette tape off.
How about the sexual violence and the rapping that she got so interested in?
So to quote, the only time I ever remember you just turning it off was, and I think I was in 4th grade, and you were driving me to my 4th grade class, my small private elementary school, and there was a song called "Doing It Well" by LL Cool J, and that came on, and it's just all sex sounds, and I think you slammed that removable radio that you had in the Volvo, and you were like, oh, please. I think it was enough. But you also, were still buying me those rap CDs with the parental advisory on them. So,
and we went to that club.
What club?
Someplace near Fenway.
Mama Ken's, the club owned by...
you mean, to go see that, I think when we went to go see the Bloodhound Gang?
Who knows?
Okay, but I think to this concert that was the Doing It Like Animals song.
You took Lily to a Bloodhound Gang concert.
She took me.
Dragged you kicking and screaming.
And that was really comedy, the beginning of kind of comedy, rap, rock.
But this is also what made you become an artist.
Yes.
Because you were like, you know what? Some shit is just too fucking cool for my parents.
So I'm going to blast this rap, Sure, I listened to Creedence with you, but, I also had my own taste in music.
And that was important.
Now, so when you first read this book, Mom, what was that initial reaction of her time in New York?
Well, yeah, that's what I want, because she goes to New York, and her first stop is she's like, I had some friends at Pratt, so let me just go be near Pratt, which is, everyone's sort of first inclination when you get to the city.
Same.
Where's Pratt?
Right.
I mean,
I did my Pratt summer program, so I was at 16.
And she goes and she lives, like, in kind of like Bed-Stuy.
Yeah, and she's like, truly
Clinton
no
Hill area.
one was living in Bed-Stuy.
Greater, like, Myrtle Willoughby vibes.
Right. And she had no money.
Yeah, not a cent to her name. She was sleeping on stoops in the park.
And neither did Mapplethorpe. I mean, so that when they do finally meet, for pages and pages of this book, they are sharing an one-day-old grilled cheese sandwich.
The beginning of the book is just description of her being like, and then at 1 a.m. we went to Bickford's. It was on 43rd and 3rd, and we'd share one black coffee and one old donut. And then the next day she's like, well, I was working at Brentano's.
Which is a chain, and there was one in the Copley Mall for our whole childhood. That's bookstore. And she's like, and she was so pissed that she didn't get paid her first week of work. And then, like, her coworker would leave her soup in a Tupperware container. She was just like, every page she's like, I was hungry again.
Yeah.
No, these thin gals in this book, they were pretty hungry.
Here's my question, Ross. Okay, so half this book is her describing sidewalks and hallways as just being full of pushers and drugs and artists. Like, this is one of her many descriptions of Washington Square Park. Entering the parameters of the White Arch, one was greeted by sounds of bongos and acoustic guitars, protest singers, political arguments, activists leafletting, older chess players challenged by the young. This open atmosphere was something I had not experienced. Simple freedom that wasn't oppressive to anyone. Is that how you would describe New York at that time in your experience?
No, I found it much more difficult. I mean, I was ecstatic to be here, but I found that it was really difficult.
You weren't just like walking through and seeing all the like buskers and artists and being like, wow, what a cool, awesome space where anything goes.
No, I was living in an apartment on East 94th Street that had more cockroaches than there were there were apartment buildings in the neighborhood.
Okay, which is also very classic, first apartment in New York City.
And you were grossed out by that, I imagine.
I was.
Because she's very, like, she's always kind of being like, it was squalor.
She doesn't seem that grossed out.
She's like, there was lice all over the bed, but I'd seen lice in Europe, so I was okay with that. I'm kind of like, girl, that's nasty.
It was.
And she would be like, and so Robert was covered in lice, and then there was lice everywhere in the bed, and then he also had crabs covered in lice.
When they first moved into that place, like, near Pratt, and she's like...
It's like covered in blood?
Yeah, she was like, there was blood smeared all over the walls.
Yeah.
And you're like, huh.
Yeah.
Right.
So how did you try to get rid of your cockroaches?
Oh, yes, I did. I did. I called the city of New York to complain. But I learned that you had to exterminate the entire apartment building in order to get rid of them because they just moved to somebody else's house.
That still tends to be the case.
Right. So it was very, very disgusting.
I assume you just had to move eventually.
Eventually I had to move. Now, when I came into the apartment and turned on the lights, they would all run away.
Of course. Yeah.
So you were more of an uptown girl.
Oh, I was quite an uptown girl for a while, and then I was an East Village girl for a while. I guess Lower East. I was on 5th Street between B and C.
Okay, so that's the heart of it.
She describes anything east of A as a war zone.
How do you feel like your 70s time in East Village compared to Patti Smith's 70s time with...
Well, I certainly didn't know all of these famous artists. And my greatest regret in life is that I did not live in the Chelsea Hotel.
Same.
Well, there's still time.
We could get you over there. I feel like I really related, as you're saying, is when she's talking about, they go to the Chelsea Hotel and her and Robert there, but she's like, oh, everyone is there. Andy Warhol, his high court, and, Jimi Hendrix and all these people. And she's like, I was so intimidated and I felt like everyone was drinking. I'm like, I wasn't. And like...
Yeah, she's not a big boozer.
No.
No, that was very interesting. I thought about the two of them. Neither one of them drank. And she didn't do drugs. where he did lots.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did lots. Well, and then she finally does do LSD with him once.
Right.
And then once, I think she like accidentally does it.
Right.
And freaks out.
Well, she's quite in control, you know?
Yeah.
She is.
She's has quite an academic energy to her.
Her only vice really is drinking endless cups of
coffee.
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 And books.
Yes.
She loves books.
And poetry. Rimbaud. Rimbaud is her.
She's obsessed with Rimbaud. But see, then this comes back to the sort of classic fag hag thing, because she loves Rimbaud. And Rimbaud also, she talks about how, like, well, it kind of explained to her, she kind of like realizes that she didn't get homosexuality because she was like using Rimbaud as his model, and Rimbaud was like weirdly closeted and like didn't understand his own sexuality.
Right.
And like Rimbaud died wanting a wife.
Right.
And kind of like also was kind of in denial about his love with Verlaine.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
And she kind of starts to piece that together. She's like, wait a minute here.
Right.
And then, she
These guys
knows.
are gay.
Yeah, and she's like, she kind of wouldn't realize, she's like, she knows that Robert would be. She's like, he kept, well, this kind of reminded me of you. She was like, he would get quiet sometimes and just start pacing maniacally throughout the apartment. And I was like, what's up with you? And she was like, oh, it's because he's not like sculpting right now. And it's like, no, because he was just like,
It's called gay panic.
it's called gay panic, and he's just gay, and he's not sleeping with any men, and he's just pacing through their apartment. And she noticed when he started dating, I think, his first boyfriend, that she was like, oh, he stopped kind of quietly pacing around. Now, did you know anyone who was going to the Chelsea Hotel, or was that just kind of a totally different?
Yeah, that was totally different. No, I think I learned about the Chelsea Hotel from Patti Smith.
From this book. But I feel like I felt that of like first moving to New York, and you're like, oh, all these people here like hanging out at this club are so intimidating. And then she finally, like, once she starts relaxing, she was like, well, I decided to stop judging everyone so much, and I could have some fun.
Right. She does refer to herself as judgmental a lot.
Now, in your psychological opinion, do you think she was doing that so that maybe she would feel like she was higher than thou of these people that weren't accepting her?
I suppose there was some anxiety about it, but I don't know. I mean, I think her father sounds kind of judgmental to me. They had a good relationship.
Yeah.
So the parents, the dad was that in the military, or because they moved to this like place for service members.
Right.
I think her dad, was in the military.
The parents seem generally supportive, and they're like, okay, this is like, you know, our smart daughter. She is freaky and artistic and spindly, and also like all the other siblings are sick in various ways.
Everyone was like having, again, a crazy, I guess that is the thing when you read a book about the past, everyone has a cough for like 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they acknowledge that she was like, you know, the one with potential.
Right.
And so they just kind of let her do her thing.
And also, I mean, she was king of the kids. I mean, you know, it sounds like she took them around and they played lots of games, and they thought up things, and because she contrasts her childhood to Mapplethorpe's.
Yeah.
Which
sound much,
he
more
seems
repressed.
much more imprisoned by
yes, yeah.
the Catholic mores.
The Long Island Catholic parents.
Right.
That seemed, because she would bring him, and he'd be like, oh, like, this is the first time I've been at like a holiday where it's not like silent and angry, and they're just saying, when are you getting married? And then it's cute when her mom gives Robert some like porcelain figurine, and some one of her little tchotchkes.
You're right, she does. Her mother gives him one. And
the dish, that little, like,
that's
candy
right.
dish. Yeah.
That's right.
And he couldn't believe it because he'd ogled it.
Right.
So lovingly. And he was also on LSD when
he was. I mean,
this faggot was high out of his gourd. I mean, the entire book.
I know.
I don't know if I've ever asked you, have you ever done LSD, Mom?
No.
Okay.
Wow.
No acid for you.
No acid.
But you've done pot, obviously.
Pot.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was the 60s.
It was the 60s. And my response to the pot was that I would get very silly, very hungry, and very sleepy.
A few of the dwarves. Silly, hungry, and sleepy.
Now, the pot back then, I mean, people always say it was pretty mild.
Probably was, but nonetheless.
Have you ever compared it to the modern stuff?
No, the only time I've done anything modern was more like when you were in college or sometime.
We had some modern pot. Yeah.
You were probably there, but it's all I remember was that I got hungry again. I went out to the kitchen and came back, and then everybody made fun of me.
Oh, this was the...
Because I had such a grown-up snack. I had a little piece of fruit, a little cheese.
I think, Mom, this story in our friend group is known a little differently.
Oh, how is it?
Yeah.
What?
You're describing it in a totally different way.
Right, well,
Maybe you saw it as an elegant grown-up snack, but you made a mango quesadilla. You made a fruit quesadilla. But
I see. Oh, okay.
which, fusion. I mean, plant-based, I guess. And
Yeah.
kind of a glass of chilled Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah.
And, but I think it was like, tortilla, shredded cheese.
Because when we talk about the infamous fruit quesadilla, we all think of it as like not necessarily like something you might see on a menu.
Not really the height of elegance.
a little sloppy.
Watch now, chefs, if you're listening. Every menu in New York City will be featuring this fruit quesadilla.
Everyone make the fruit quesadilla, report back.
Report back, fruit quesadilla recipes.
Celebrity Book Club.
She finally starts dating. I forget which four boyfriends, but I think she really realizes, Robert is gay, and she's like, is when she gets married, and he says to her, "What am I gonna tell my parents?" And that part was so sad.
Yes. Well, yeah, so she dated somebody whose name I don't remember, and then she dated Sam Shepard, not realizing that Sam Shepard was the Sam Shepard.
That was wild. And I guess that does feel very, downtown New York of so she starts dating Sam Shepard, famous playwright, but he calls himself Slim.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, that's the famous playwright, Sam Shepard. He's won 9 Tonys, and that's why he's ordering you a lobster. The food was kind of wild. It was either they were having donuts and black coffee, or they were next to the Chelsea Hotel having ceviche and lobsters.
High-low.
Yeah. Another thing of this book that made me realize how unoriginal I am is that talking about I feel her alternative, her and Robert's interests of old bookstores and postcards and going to Coney Island and seeing freaky things and old movies and seeing kind of oddities and such. I feel that is every generation of alternative.
I mean, it's
goes
the
through
blueprint
that.
for indie, and I'm sure in 1640, the indie kids in the village were just being just there's this really cool crypt. Do you want to go? It's all the same shit. Well, first of all the interiors are always just Indian fabrics and beads and Buddhas.
Yeah. Not so many Buddhas.
Well, when she worked at the bookstore, the most important thing in their relationship is this Persian necklace.
Persian necklace.
It's there's a lot of
Well, I would say
they invented prayer flags.
Your generation, mother, is very
there
Oriental rugs.
There was a lot of Oriental rugs. Yeah, I mean, it was just those were the people who made good rugs that lasted, and they had interesting patterns.
There's one scene here I just wanted to read. She's describing her disgusting apartment. My treasured objects were mingled with the laundry. My work area was a jumble of manuscript pages, musty classics, broken toys, and talismans. I'm just so it's a mess.
Yeah.
You're just living in a mess. But she's just being the talismans. It's I'm just imagining a gross Bushwick gay in his tiled basement apartment that gets a sliver of sunlight at 3 p.m. just describing the empty poppers bottle on the floor as a talisman. It's we could, and she's so romanticizing just their gross East Village life for so many years.
I know,
but
and
I'm
it's
just
we could
this
do
is just
that
a normal ass gross
now about
energy.
our first bed bug filled apartment. We could have been you walked in, there was old books, fabrics, vintage clothes.
A couch we got off Craigslist for $150. It was all the money we had in our pocket at the time.
A big box TV that only had one plug, and it's bed bugs everywhere.
An old VHS player that you had to bang in the side to get it to work.
This other moment that I really related with when she's I think it's again Sam Shepard comes to her house and she's I had a bed on the floor and old Hank Williams records and my dusty guitar. But I guess, yeah, I always think of like our Bean Stevens generation as being like the first ones to be like obsessed with nostalgia. But I guess, were you into things of the past as a child?
I was into riding horses. I don't really.
Which you just, gifted me one of your old horse show. Is it a plate?
It's a tray.
A tray.
Totally tarnished, but
Vintage horse trays.
Were you good?
yes.
Oh, I mean, she was a star.
Like
Those boxes of ribbons.
ribbons and trophies. Because your other daughter, Gia, famously is a
Yes.
horsist as well.
She's a horsist. Yes, I rode in Madison Square Garden.
Wow. On display.
I can't believe you've performed in Madison Square Garden.
You were doing like dressage?
No, I wish. I mean, it was no. It was called equitation.
Equitation.
Because for most horse shows, the competition is of the horse, so that the horse is being judged.
Right.
Whereas in these equitation classes for the younger riders, they're judging the rider.
I see.
So you were being judged as a rider.
Right.
Okay.
And how do you remember your score?
Yes, I got a 6th place.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty good.
It was pretty good. It was pretty good. Because the problem was, though, that my horse, I think, had been abused in some way before I owned her. So that when you ride around in a ring, you ride around and then you turn.
Catholic father. Right.
And then you reverse. And I think they used to smack her when on the reverse thing. So that's what you do in equitation. You ride around the ring and then you reverse and do the stuff the same way, the other way around, except she got very, very jittery. And I couldn't sort of behavior therapize her out of that because she never did it at home.
Oh, only
interesting. It was like that space was like triggering for her.
That's right.
And it was causing her to relive that trauma every time because of all of the visual and sonic triggers around. And you didn't have the time to do the cognitive behavioral therapy with the horse in that space.
That's right.
You know, you were just a young writer.
That's right. In Delhi, New York.
Wow.
I mean, was that crazy to go from Delhi and then come to Madison Square Garden?
It was.
No, Mom, please would you mind listing the pets, the animals that you had growing up?
This is a little far afield from just kids.
This is. Maybe we'll save that for the VIP lounge.
Yes. Oh, we'll save that for the VIP lounge where Roz will be sticking around and things will get really personal.
On the VIP lounge that now comes out on Fridays. Okay, we'll get into your pets.
Another time.
And for the paywall episode, back to just kids.
What I find quite endearing about this book, and I think admirable, is the honesty, how much she is basically admitting how much she had this idea of an artist lifestyle that she wanted to be adjacent to, that she is pursuing. And she thinks of artists as XYZ. She thinks of artists as doing drugs and hanging out and being glamorous and being fun. And even as she goes through her career and she's continuing to write and make art and she's hanging out with Mapplethorpe and he's becoming gay and taking sexy photos of his dick and his cock and other men's cocks. She's like, she's still like, I don't know. Everyone is like trying to be so cool and hang out with Andy Warhol. I'm not really sure the vibe. Like, she's just admitting that there is very much like a scene and an image that people are trying to portray that she's also kind of trying to portray and not sure if she's doing it right.
No, right. Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of artists would not admit that is a huge motivator for them.
Well, and also between the two of them, because he really liked Warhol.
Yeah.
And she did not. She said, I didn't like the soup and I didn't like the can.
I love that. And she was like, I think art should transform society, not mirror it.
Yeah. Right.
Which, was such a dig at Andy.
But I think, she resented, even because she wanted to be such a part of it, when they would go to Chelsea Hotel in Max's Kansas City, and she'd be like, and there be Andy Warhol and his high court.
Yeah, I mean, but and then the part where she's like, because they went through this period of always hanging out at this place that seems like it was kind of where Union Square Cafe is. It was like 18th and Park, kind of, and like that was the hot spot for all the artists to hang out. And
Max's Kansas City.
Yeah, right.
That was a famous rock club, rock history stuff.
It was it sounded like a restaurant.
But then it turned into a rock club, and she was like, oh, and then some guy was like, do you want to go see the Velvet Underground play? And she was like, Max's Kansas City had just started having shows. And she was like, I hadn't heard the Velvet Underground yet. And then she went in, she was like, they just had this surf beat and this, which I find that sort of thing that's like, she really was not planning on becoming a musician at all. She was like, I'm an artist, I'm a poet.
Yeah.
And then the way she got famous
was the music.
Right.
Even though she's not such a singer as much. She's more of like a poet.
Yeah.
Talker.
Right.
But yeah. But,
Well, Dylan was her idol.
Right. And Dylan famously is not like such a vocalist.
Right.
But I love the part where she was like, Mapplethorpe was like obsessed with going to Max's to like maybe run into Andy Warhol, even though Andy wasn't even really going there anymore.
Yeah.
Because he had just like already been shot. And she was like, and then a lot of days, like there would be like hours spent deciding what we were going to wear to Max's. And I was like, wow, relating to this.
This is their first time of when, him being so obsessed with Andy Warhol, them going to Max's Kansas City. It was casual and sparse, adorned with large abstract pieces of art given to Mickey by artists who ran up supernatural bar tabs. I love that line, supernatural bar tabs. Everything save the white walls was red. Booths, tablecloths, napkins, even their signature chickpeas were served in little red bowls. The big draw was surf and turf, steak and lobster. The back room, bathed in red light, was Robert's objective, and the definitive target was the legendary round table that still harbored the rose-colored order of the absent Silver King.
The absent Silver King.
Silver King. And then she's like, oh, Andy Warhol stopped, coming around much after he was shot.
Yeah.
So were you rocking out to Patti Smith's CDs at the house while Lily's coming home and doing her fractions?
I don't. I actually know. I think it was even later. I don't remember.
I feel like more when I went to college.
I think so. Yeah.
Went back and were like,
it was more of like post-divorce,
right?
Like,
sort of.
Birds are out of the nest.
The birds are out of the nest,
Yeah.
and also, my continuing rebellion against the Catholic Church, and so her famous line in one of her albums is, "Jesus died for somebody's sins, but not mine."
segment cigarettes.
What does she eat?
What does she wear?
How
does
does she live?
Okay, what does she eat? So let's do, obviously, when this book takes place, she eats stale donuts
And coffee.
And
Grilled cheese.
A lot of grilled.
She has her famous lettuce soup. Just a chicken bouillon cube,
Yeah.
water, and lettuce.
We should make that tonight. Well, and then she
Sounds
does it
good,
an
honestly.
extremely Alison Roman tin fish thing where she's like, I got like country bread, and she does like anchovies and olive oil.
I could see that lettuce soup being though like such a TikTok recipe now, where it's like you get some really good bouillon that's like this cool bouillon that everyone's getting off of Amazon. And then really good water.
Yeah, and like really good like thick leaves of lettuce.
Yeah, and then like, just like some like amazing like what's that kind of classic
butter lettuce,
butter
Boston.
cabbage like something. Kind of just like a big buttery cabbage lettuce.
No,
But she also
And you
goes.
soak it overnight
She
or
also goes to
something.
the Automatch, goes to Horn and Hardart, and gets a lettuce and tomato sandwich. Except she doesn't have quite enough money, and a person she doesn't know behind her gives her a dime, and it's Allen Ginsberg.
Oh, right. Bad asshole. I'm not a fan of his.
You're not?
Yeah. Did he speak to you at that time?
Yes, he did.
Okay. I mean, I wasn't there, so I can't say.
Now, what do we think Patti Smith, though, eats currently? I see her making like a big chicken tagine.
I don't think she eats that much, to be honest. I think she still kind of has she's a small stomach. She's a bird-like eater.
Right, I think so. And all that coffee.
Yeah, all
Like
that
you-
coffee.
you're
It doesn't-
jittery.
Yeah, it just makes you jittery. I think maybe she has like a half a corn cob for lunch.
Oh, well, that was insane. She was when they go to their favorite place, Coney Island, and are like being like alternative. She's like, we'd share the hot dog, of course, and and Robert would eat the hot dog, and she's like, and I would eat the sauerkraut, which seems like a very like thin person
It's just
thing to do.
condiments.
Yeah, she's like, oh, I'll have the pickled cabbage, yum yum yum. She's like, I loved it.
Yeah, I bet today she's having like some pickles.
With just a little mustard.
Yeah. And sort of calling it a day. Almost like a Swedish diet. And yet she almost seems enamored with her
being hungry.
with the sense of hunger. She talks about it quite a lot, you know.
Because she was.
What does she wear? I mean, there's
classics.
there's scarves. There was a lot of like back. I mean, there was like a very like old, just classic St. Mark's boho leather jacket, scarves energy. There's like some time when she goes to like Paris and she writes Robert a letter that's just like, I'm being such a gypsy. I'm adorned in scarves. I'm head to toe flowy.
Wait, that also amazing part happened to her, speaking of poetry, in France, when that, like, crypt keeper yells at her in French, you Americans have no respect for poetry. And then she, like, walks away with her, like, jangly suitcase, and she's like, I'm sorry, we don't.
But the other thing she wears is she has a black Easter dress.
Lot of black. Oh, and that's what she wears at his funeral?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot. Okay, she's always describing Mapplethorpe's huaraches.
Oh, yeah, she's like, and then he put on his huaraches.
He
and
threw on a pair of dungarees and huaraches.
I've always wanted to wear huaraches, and when
I don't want you to wear huaraches.
Mom, what do you think? Can I pull them off? Because when I put them on, they do look like weird little flats. They don't look like I'm a cool Cuban man.
I don't think anyone really looks great in it. You know, I'm not a big fan of men without socks. And
really?
I think if you're gonna not wear socks, then it also needs to be open toe. Like, I think closed toe with no sock, and a huarache is maybe somewhat open because it's
netted, kind of.
Yeah,
it's woven leather. I typically
friend of the pod, Teo, pulls off listener, and I feel like a huarache very well. And that's why I was like, oh, I wish I could do that. But I think that's more specific to him.
Yes, I love the idea of casual summer, the resort wear that the woven leather implies.
Yeah.
But I just don't like what it does to an ankle. It like, because basically what is happening here is that it's like, now all of a sudden I'm like seeing your nakedness, and I'm like, well, I want to see the nakedness finished. You know what I mean? I want to see the toes. But then when the toes are stopped,
I never want to see the toes.
But all I'm thinking then is about the sweat that's pooling in the shoe. I
feel like you actually have a toe fetish. Like, I feel like, is this like your thing? If you think a guy has a big toe, he has a big dick?
Well, I'm sure that's true. I mean, an elephant has a bigger toe than a cat, and who has the bigger dick?
Okay, so no huaraches for me.
At least not in my presence.
Yeah.
If you want to keep me horned.
Maybe when I go to France on my own to visit poets' graves without the pressure of my panicked gay companion around me.
You can huarache it up at Père Lachaise. Walk all over Jim Morrison's grave in your huaraches. Okay, how does she live? Okay, I do feel like, so like, it is, they're being very prayer flags and like dirty apartment.
Bed on floor, old records.
I feel like she's probably still, again, I'm going to say, I think there's a Buddha in there.
Probably, but she also redid a house in the Rockaways.
Oh.
This is from another book.
Okay, so...
There's a reno in one of her other books?
Yeah.
How does she redo it? Like a beachside...
It's like a little beach thing that I don't think she doesn't do it all herself.
Yeah, I mean, she hires people too.
Yeah, but I mean, this is not like a $500,000 condo. I mean, I think it's a small
little
house.
Beach house.
Yeah.
And she's probably keeping it like maybe appropriate to the architecture. It's coastal, it's simple.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe a hammock in there.
And plants. So, yeah, so she does live there, but then she has an apartment. In Manhattan.
So, I'm right. That she has like probably a pretty kind of raw, but now much nicer loft with like a big sectional that's low and made of linen, and there's like oriental rugs and Mapplethorpe photos and maybe an old steel desk.
I'm not so sure about that, because when I read about it, it's a lot more like a cot and an old desk.
Yeah, don't you think she's a little bit more like your client, Lily?
Oh.
Who is a sort of famous poetrix of this era.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And it's quite bare bones.
Yeah. Okay, keep it the original. I mean, I do love that she, like, got a house in Rockaway. Like, she is just being, like, that New York City gal through and through. Like, she's not getting some beach house, in Malibu.
She doesn't lust after, luxury in this book.
No, and I mean, in her life, the luxury that she likes is travel.
Yes. Experiences. Same. And, Mapplethorpe, curiously enough, for a gay man, he was not such a travel bug.
No.
And she's like, that was not his thing. He wanted to be New York based and like go out and party and be part of the scene and do all of his Times Square, 42nd Street, sailor adjacent sexual, degeneracy. But she was just like,
I'm ready to take the
Spain,
train
France,
through Europe.
Morocco, San Francisco, Canada, all the places.
And he was still, I think he was a little afraid to travel. I feel like he had finally been like, well, I'm now finally cool here.
Right.
Let me stay in New York where...
Oh my God, is that my fear? Is that why I can't leave New York?
Well, is that why you're going to Panama?
Well, I mean, I'm going to Panama, yes, because of gay panic. But I'm like, because I'm always like, I hate it in New York. I've lived here too long. But it's like, I'm like, God, it's like.
You finally made it.
I've made it in New York.
You sit with your high court at Clandestino.
I sit with my high court at Clandestino. And I'm like, oh my God, like I have friends here. I have a career here. I can't, if I walk away, no one will know me.
Well, also, he got sick. Just as he got successful, he got sick.
True. So he wasn't he couldn't
He
really
was only
travel.
41. I mean, he wasn't 80. So.
He may have decided to start traveling. Yeah. Well, I'll be 41 soon. Maybe I'll move.
Pass.
Okay. Who are you in the book?
Mom, I think you're Patti Smith.
I wish I was Patti Smith.
What do you wish? I mean, I think you're amazing as is. What do you wish? Do you wish you were more of a poet? What are the parts of her?
Yes, I do wish, and I wish I had her bravery.
Mm.
Well, I think you're very brave.
Well, thank you very much.
You're very brave, Roz. I mean, we'll talk about moving somewhere. I mean, you moved from Boston to upstate New York.
Right.
You moved somewhere where you had been quite ensconced.
Yes, that's true.
And had known for so long and were very comfortable and moved to a completely new place where you barely knew anyone.
That's true. I didn't know myself.
That's quite brave.
Well, thank you. Yeah, but I think maybe I'm thinking of myself at her age when she was that young and exploring New York in the way that she
sleeping on stoops and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Anyway, yeah.
I mean, I certainly see, there's obvious parallels where you're Patti Smith and I'm Mapplethorpe.
I was definitely seeing, that between us.
And you're just like, not this faggot.
Yeah, and I'm just like, not this faggot again. Like, sketching for 3 days straight and then just not talking and being silent and being like, wait, we have to go to Max's Kansas City. And I'm just like, I don't know. I don't really know Andy Warhol that way. And you're like, you're going? We're getting free lobster? It's happening, bitch. But also, I also kind of related with Mapplethorpe. We're both also a little bit Mapplethorpe's more fabulous older benefactor who's always quoting Peggy Guggenheim.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, it's like the end, they're both sick. And he's like, I want to fly to Japan because I saw an amazing tea set I want to buy.
That was Sam Wagstaff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So was Mapplethorpe famous when he died?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, he was well on his way. Yeah, which is...
But I feel like he became truly famous after.
Yeah.
Well, and he says this also. I was like, this would so happen to us. Like if I got if I had an album that was charting before you, and Patty and Robert are walking, and they hear her song with Bruce Springsteen playing, and he goes to her, "Well, you did it. You're famous before me."
I could absolutely see that happening. Can't wait.
You're like, congrats, bitch. Congrats. No, I'm really happy for you. And you're charting single with Bruce Springsteen. Okay, wow.
Right. I give this book, I would say, maybe, yeah. I'll give it 4 out of 5 cigarettes. I think it's an important read. I think it is, it explains so much about alternative culture and indie people in New York City. And, it's a little, it can be a little repetitive at times. There's not, I don't know. There's not like so much that happens. There's not so much humor in this book either, I would say, which is fine. But
then there's some that when the humor happens, it surprises you so much that I did laugh out loud once.
But I did, I shed a tear at the end,
yes,
and I ultimately I do think she is quite a good writer, and I appreciate that. So well done, Patti.
Yeah, I would go along with Stephen. I would give it a 4 out of 5. I mean, because in some ways it can simply seem like a bit of name dropping.
Yes, with the Warhols,
with this, but all these people. But on the other hand, it's like the history of that era of rock and roll.
Right. So you got to name the names.
You
it's
do
like,
have to
what would it be if you didn't name the names?
Yeah.
No, I agree. Yeah, 4 out of 5. And because there's so many books like this that are, I would say, more name droppy, but she's a better writer. So it's not just a list of names and drugs we did. And I think it's cool that it is also just of such a time and not like, let me do my whole life, and really goes much more. A lot of memoirs don't go so into the relationships and the emotions of it, rather than like, we dated for 3 years and here was the breakup. Let's move on. So yeah, 4 out of 5. Well, Mom, this was epic.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, this was really a dream. This is a long time coming.
I mean, we had to beg your publicist.
Yeah, I am really glad you could move some things around and squeeze us in.
Thank you so much.
I know you're going on the Drew Barrymore show after this, right?
Yeah, we have you're doing Today's Show, Drew Barrymore show, Fallon. Conan, the circuit. Colbert. Your crush.
My crush.
We'll talk about that in the VIP lounge.
No. We're just good friends.
All right, ladies. Another scintillating episode. We'll see you for the VIP on Friday.
Yeah, stick around.
Best.
Celebrity Book Club is presented by Prologue Projects. The show is produced by Benjamin Frisch with editorial support from Leon Nathan. Andrew Parsons and Madeline Kaplan. Our production matter is Persia Verlin. I'm not pronouncing anybody's name right. Original theme song by Stephen Phillips Horst. Artwork by Teddy Blanks at Ships New York. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, at CBC The Pod. Subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Leave us a review and don't forget to tell your friends about us. And don't forget to go to patreon.com for access to the VIP Lounge, our exclusive bonus podcast.
Yeah!